Welcome to my Amazon Ice Wolf guide. This has been one of the most enjoyable experiences that I've had playing PoE 2. It was a phenomenal league starter, and it really excels at pretty much everything in the game. It's got really good single target, great map clear, good defense. I would say the only thing that it ever really struggles with is just ground degens, but there's ways to handle that. And all of that on a pretty tight budget. Yes, you're going to have to spend some divines to get to the point that I'm at, but we aren't running any crazy expensive items. No headhunter, none of the really expensive lineage gems. At this point, if I had the currency lying around, I wouldn't even mess with the lineage gems. Get a headhunter. If you've already got one or you have the currency, it does just make any build better, so there's no reason really not to run it, but I wanted to keep this as budget as I could. First up, let's take a look at the abilities. So we'll talk about the active abilities, then the spirit gems, and then our weapon swap and what's going on there. So first up, we've got Shred. Now, you get this ability from picking Wolf on your talisman, so you basically get it for free. It does not cost mana, and it's going to be our single target ability. Now, it's got a couple components to it. You've got your normal strikes when you're kind of just shredding at the enemy, clawing the enemy, and then also ice fragments. So when you attack a frozen enemy, it will create ice fragments, which are projectiles that land and explode after a short delay. And those are going to be 100% of the physical of the ice fragments is converted to cold damage. So simply on single targets, you want to get them frozen, and then you just go to town with Shred. So for support gems, we've got rapid attacks, 25% increased attack speed, close combat, 30% more attack damage. This will affect both the strikes of Shred and the projectiles, and we're right in melee range, so we'll get this benefit. Running overextend, again, this is a crit build. On bosses, we are getting up to 100% chance to crit, so every hit's going to be a crit. This gives us 30% more critical damage bonus. This does come with the downside of being dazed when you critically strike, which makes you take 50% more stun buildup. But the thing is, we're only going to be shredding when the enemy is frozen, so this doesn't really matter. This could also be long fuse. Then we've got blindside. We will be blinding on pinnacle bosses and in maps. This gives us 15% more critical damage bonus and 15% more chance to critically hit blinded enemies. Then we've got elemental armament 3. Supported skills deal 12% more attack damage for each elemental ailment on enemies that they hit. Now I want to jump right to Cross Slash, just because this has synergy with Shred. So Cross Slash, when you activate it, it's going to suck in the ice fragments to the location of the gouges from the Cross Slash, and then blow them up immediately. You really only typically have to hit this one time on bosses, and you'll kind of get a feel for your character. Like at this point, I've done enough bosses that I kind of know like when I'll be able to almost execute the boss by using Cross Slash. And you see that like with the Zest fight. Like I knew kind of right where I was at, to where if I Cross Slash here, it's just going to delete him. And so you'll get used to that as you play. But again, simply, you freeze the enemy, you shred a bunch, you Cross Slash. And that's about it. So with Cross Slash, the main things that I just want it to be used quickly. So rapid attacks and Rage 3 are on here. That's all I'm really concerned with on Cross Slash. I'm sure you can optimize this to make it deal more damage and things like that, but we really don't need it, in my opinion. So next up, we're going to take a look at Lunar Assault. So Lunar Assault is going to be our main map clearing ability. It also has incredible built-in freeze buildup. So you see 604% on the tooltip there. If you look at this, 1378% cold freeze buildup multiplier. And we also have other ways to kind of scale that even further to freeze things quicker. Very insane. The entire build is just built around freezing enemies as quick as you can. So for gems on Lunar Assault, we've got Rage 3. This is going to be one of the main ways to gain Rage in the build. Keep in mind we are on the right side of the tree, of the passive tree, so there isn't as many easy ways to gain Rage on that side. We're going to run that here. It also gives it increased attack speed if you're not at maximum Rage. Running Deep Freeze, this increases the freeze duration. This is a stat that is pretty hard to come by in this game. There's very few things that actually give you freeze duration. So it's very, very important for pinnacle bosses. You could potentially drop it while mapping. You just got to feel that out and see if you don't need it. I still like to run it even when I'm mapping though, personally. Running Bater's Vengeance. I'm sure you've seen this make the rounds. I feel like just about every build is trying to fit this in there, as long as they're a rage build. When you freeze a target with supported skills for each one rage you have, you and allies in your presence gain 1% of damage as cold damage for 20 seconds. We get up to 42 rage, which isn't, the 70 plus rage that some builds get on the left side of the tree if you're in the warrior druid area, but still a very, very big damage increase. Also running rapid attacks here. This could also be elemental armament, but I like the rapid attacks. The one really nice thing about it is it doesn't have a mana multiplier to it. This is a build that can be very mana hungry. We've basically pretty much solved that in this build, but if you don't have all the pieces together, it can be pretty mana intensive. So I like rapid attacks there. Then on pinnacle bosses, I run freeze for 50% more freeze buildup. This could be some other things, elemental armament again. And then for mapping, we switch to Ancestral Call. So Lunar Assault is a strike, and every 3 seconds this will ancestrally boost Lunar Assault, and basically it'll attack 3 times at once for massive area of effect. Then that brings us to Lunar Blessing, probably the most crazy ability in the Werewolf Toolkit. So this is a buff on your character, so you activate it, and for a duration you get extra damage as cold, a ton of it, and then also anytime you attack with a werewolf skill, moonbeams will come down. So the moonbeam currently is doing 394% attack damage. It converts 100% of physical to cold, and 8 moonbeams are called down. So you call down a moonbeam on the target, and then to 7 other targets within 6 meters is what that's saying. You look in here at the radius of it, so the moonbeam here. So the impact radius is 1.8 meters, and then the search radius is what I've got is at 7 meters currently. And then again, 8 moonbeams total. So really crazy ability. It's insane for clear. Helps with your clear tremendously, and also just gives all of your abilities a ton more damage. Then as far as the cooldown and duration of it, so currently my duration is 7.29 seconds. And then when you activate it, it's going to consume all of your rage and add 0.2 seconds per rage consumed. My cooldown is 14.97 seconds. So you got to play around with this and just make sure that you have 100% uptime on this. Obviously you have to recast it, but as soon as it's off cooldown, you're able to recast it is effectively what you want, or sooner is fine too. So to that end, we are running cooldown recovery on it, and increasing the duration with prolonged duration. I also have a Heart of the Well with both cooldown and duration, getting me to that point that I need with it. There are some places on the tree that you can get some of that as well, duration and cooldown, if you need to. I'll point that out when we get to the passive part of the video. I am running the Mana Leech from Elemental Damage lineage support. So you do need 1 roll of physical Mana Leech, and I currently have it on a ring. This allows the moonbeams from Lunar Blessing to just leech a ton of mana. Also running Rage 3. The moonbeams are technically considered a melee hit, so they will give you 5 rage. And then on pinnacle bosses, I typically run efficiency just to reduce the cost. Lunar Blessing can get pretty out of control with mana costs. So with efficiency on there, in my current setup, it's only 241 mana, really not too bad. But every rank that you increase this, just like anything, it's going to increase the mana cost. So you got to be careful with that. I'm only sitting at a 793 mana pool at the moment. So if we take that off, that goes to 401 mana. So typically during mapping, I tend to run blind on there, just to blind enemies all over the place to get our bonuses from blind. You could also run increased area of effect here, or just add another damage gem like elemental armament. So that brings us to Pounce. Pounce does a lot of stuff for us here. It's a movement ability, has a really fast animation to it, so it's great for traversing the map while you're mapping. You can also like jump gaps with it, which is really nice while mapping, or like, jump like up over a ridge, things like that, stuff you would typically have to walk around, which is great. But really the crazy part about Pounce is that it has a built-in mark. So you hit an enemy and you mark them. We're not going to use the built-in mark because you can actually also socket in a different mark skill that it will use and mark enemies for you. So we're running Freezing Mark. Mine's only level 19 at the moment, and you can spend the money if you want to get this thing to level 20. So currently hits against marked enemies cost 54% more freeze buildup, which is really, really good against Pinnacle bosses. The buff grants 30% of damage gained as cold damage for 10 seconds. We're also running Mark for Death. Enemies marked by supported skills have armor broken equal to 15% of physical damage taken. And we are still doing a ton of physical damage with our Shred. Also got some added physical damage, which we'll talk about here a little bit later. You can also run, there's another support that gives you mana and life leech against marked enemies, which is really good. At this point, I don't really feel like I need that, but you can definitely run it if you want to. It's a really great way to solve any kind of mana issues, especially on single targets. Then I'm running Holy Descent. Where you land, you're going to create consecrated ground. While you're in consecrated ground, you get increased life regen. The reason why I like this currently is that we are running two abilities that will degen our life, Berserk and Savage Fury. So this is really nice to have. The majority of the time, you don't really need it because you're hitting things and leeching life and all that good stuff. But if you're in a situation where you're like waiting for the boss to do its monologue, you can put this down and make sure you're not degenning while you're at full rage or something like that. Also running Blazing Critical. Whenever you crit with this ability, your attacks will gain 15% of damage as fire damage for 5 seconds. Really, really solid. We're actually running this on something else, which we'll go over later as well. But I like to have it on Pounce, mainly for mapping. Alright, next up, let's take a look at the Spirit Gems. So first up, we have Savage Fury. It's 30 Spirit. You gain 1 Fury on attack hit, maximum of 20 Fury. Then you can activate it, and it gives you Onslaught, which will give you attack speed and movement speed, and 33% more damage. You also lose 3% of maximum life per second while it's active. Now, the thing about this at the moment is if you just set this to weapon set 2, it still builds up Fury even when you're attacking with weapon set 1, and then you can still activate it. So you effectively get it for free. So I'm sure that'll be fixed at some point, but currently it's not, so might as well enjoy it. Then this is an evasion and energy shield build for the most part, so we are running Wind Dancer. Wind Dancer is going to give 10% more evasion rating per stage with a maximum of 3 stages. It does have a hit component. If it activates, it'll hit, so I've got Rage 2 on there, because it is technically melee, just to get more rage back. There's other things you can add to this, like pin and stun and things like that. I mean, you could really put freeze build up on here, that kind of stuff too. I don't have anything else at the moment that's really affecting the Wind Dancer proc, but you could do that if you wanted to. We're also running Precision 2, 50% increased accuracy rating while supported skills active. We are an Amazon, so with our Ascendancy, we are able to overcap our accuracy to gain additional crit chance. That's why we're running that. Then I've also got Clarity 2 here for more mana regen. So next up, Berserk. So Berserk grants 66% increased rage effect. And again, you know, on a build that's getting 70 plus rage, it's definitely better there, but it's still a very, very nice attack damage increase. But you do lose 0.1% of maximum life per rage per second while not losing rage. Also got Ultred's Exodus on there. You get +3 levels to supported skills if no other supports are modifying them. This thing is like a few div, I think, like 2 or 3 divine. It's totally not necessary. It's only giving Berserk like 3% increased rage effect or something. So definitely don't worry about running this if you don't want to spend the money on it. We'll get back to Herald of Ice in just a minute. We kind of got to go more in depth on that one. So Ghost Dance is really what makes Evasion Energy Shield builds insane. So you periodically gain Ghost Shrouds. You can have a max of 3 Ghost Shrouds. There's a duration between gaining them. When you're hit, you consume a Ghost Shroud to recover energy shield equal to 5% of your evasion rating. So you get really high evasion rating, and you get to just recover your energy shield like crazy. We've got compressed duration on there. That means that we're going to actually gain our Ghost Shrouds quicker. So I think it says 6.2 seconds there, but it's actually 4.35 seconds between gaining Ghost Shrouds. Now keep in mind, any increased duration that you have globally, like on the tree or anything like that, is actually going to increase that duration between gaining Ghost Shrouds. So not ideal, but it's probably going to happen. Next up, we have Herald of Ice. I'll try to explain this as simply as I can. So while this is active, shattering an enemy with a non-herald attack hit will cause an icy explosion that deals attack damage to surrounding enemies. So you freeze something, you shatter it, it deals an explosion. This is what you see going on in the mapping, just tons of explosions everywhere and chaining explosions. So the thing is, with Herald of Ice, it converts 100% of explosion physical damage to cold damage. It's converting all of its physical to cold. But if you get this roll, 33% of damage is extra physical damage. Easiest way to get it is on the talisman, but you can get it on the tree in places as well. This actually gets added after the conversion. So you can see in the tooltip reflected here that it is dealing physical damage. Then we run Armor Break 3. You break armor equal to 20% of physical damage dealt by supported skills. Along with Uruk's Smelting, so you break more armor. And then when the armor is broken, you have Armor Explosion. It creates an explosion that also deals damage. Now, with all the added cold damage that we have, this Armor Explosion can then freeze, and then shatter, and then proc Herald of Ice again, and so on and so forth. It'll proliferate out from there. That's why you just see the crazy chaining. It's basically Herald chaining from earlier in the life of the game that they didn't want in the game that they got rid of. So at some point this will probably be nerfed and removed again, but enjoy it while you can. And we also got Elemental Armament on there for more elemental attack damage. That pretty much wraps up the Spirit Gems, although one thing that you can do that I would recommend, if you're doing just a bunch of Pinnacle bosses, like say you're doing a bunch of Zesht in a row, which is what I normally do, you can get rid of Herald of Ice completely and put on Eternal Rage and set Eternal Rage to just weapon set 2 and then have Berserk on weapon set 1. And then while the boss is talking, doing its thing, you can just switch over to weapon set 2 and regen your rage. And why this is important is you want to have pretty high rage for when you hit Lunar Blessing. Now, do keep in mind that when you are in weapon set 2, you are losing out on 12 rage from the weapon. So when you switch back, you're going to go to 30, which is what you were at over here on the second weapon. But I mean, it's plenty of time. Bosses are dying in like 4 to 8 seconds. But that definitely gives you a lot more room for error than just having like the 7 seconds that Lunar Blessing has baseline without the additional duration from consuming rage. So I'd recommend you do that. One other thing that you can do is a lot of times run Blood of the Warrior when I'm doing Pinnacle bosses. This basically, while this is active, there's no inherent loss of rage during the effect. So this isn't going to help you on like Arbiter. You do need to do the Eternal Rage trick. But on like Zesht, you don't really need Eternal Rage because you're killing a bunch of enemies leading up to Zesht, so you're going to be at max rage. Then you just hit this a couple times as you're running up to Zesht. You'll have full rage to then start off your combo and kill them. All right, so next up, let's take a look at this weapon swap. So we've got a wand. The two important things on here are the Galvanic Field and the increased critical hit chance for spells, paired with Effigy of Cruelty. Critical hits with spells apply 3 stacks of critical weakness. This will stack all the way up to an additional 10% crit chance. Now this is weapon crit chance, not increased crit chance like on the tree. So it's like baseline crit chance that the increased crit chance scales off of. So it's really strong. This is how we're getting to 100% crit chance on bosses. So the main thing that we're doing is Thunderstorm. So Thunderstorm has a couple components to it. First off, it creates rain that drenches enemies. Drenched enemies take more freeze buildup. Great for this build. That's what we're doing. That's what we want. And then it also has lightning strikes. And it strikes pretty often. Hits one target every 0.35 seconds. It has a duration currently of about 13 seconds for me. So you can actually put this down before the boss is active to actually attack him. So you can kind of preload it. And the main thing that we're doing with it is shock conduction. Hits from supported skills always shock drenched targets. So you're getting a guaranteed shock out of this. Doesn't matter how much damage you're dealing to the boss, they're going to be shocked. Running that with overcharge for more shock magnitude. Commiserate. So when you inflict an ailment with supported skills, remove that ailment from yourself. Ailments inflicted by supported skills have 40% more magnitude if you're afflicted with that ailment when inflicting it. So these pair really well together to just remove the shock that you're getting. Because, I mean, we're doing anywhere from like a 70 to 90% shock. So you definitely don't want that on your character. But then you also get more shock. It's really good. Pinpoint critical. This is to make sure we're critting consistently to stack up Effigy of Cruelty. I believe my crit on this is about, almost 30%, which is also going to go up higher as you get the critical weakness stacks. Then I also have blind on here. So you're guaranteeing blinding the boss for blindside on shred and blind on the tree. So then also galvanic field. This is great too because you get to preload this as well. It's a buff your character gets. So you hit it, you get a buff. Then when you shock an enemy, it consumes the buff to attach an orb of electricity to that enemy. And again, this has 30% crit chance as well, I believe. Yeah, it should be the same. So another way to stack up that critical weakness quickly. We've got pinpoint critical on there. Prolonged duration. I've got living lightning on here. I don't know if this actually does anything or works. It doesn't have the spell tag on it, so I don't know if I'm stacking critical weakness faster with this or not, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. And then we're running blazing critical on here. So you would think with the attack tag and the way this reads that spells couldn't proc this, but they can. So pretty much you'll have this up all the time against bosses with this on galvanic field. Pretty nice. I run it here to make sure I've got it for bosses because technically at the very beginning of the fight is when you pounce to apply your freezing mark, and you aren't going to have 100% crit when you do that, so maybe pounce doesn't apply it. This will. Next up, let's take a look at the gear. Now, of course, get your resists and your attributes where you need them. That's going to vary by character, so you're not going to be able to potentially copy what I'm doing one-to-one here, depending on what gear you have and what gear you can find and buy and stuff like that. So for the weapon, this is crafted. I'm not going to go over the crafting process. There are tons and tons and tons of videos out there on how to craft these talismans. In the comments, if anybody needs a link to one of those, let me know and I'll link it, but I'm not going to go over it here. So we've got high physical damage. It's a Magi talisman, so it has plus 12 to maximum rage on it, which is great. Then we've got plus 5 to level of all attack skills. The damage is extra physical, attack speed, and then life leech. I really like life leech. And again, you can run that support in your pounce to get life leech against marked enemies. So you can take care of it that way, but I would rather have life leech all the time personally. So if you don't get it here, you're going to have to get it on one of your rings. So for the gear, we are running one of the best Ascendancy nodes in the game with Amazon, where your evasion rating on your gloves, helmet, and boots are doubled, but the evasion rating on your body armor is halved. So we are stacking evasion on mainly the helmet and the boots, and then we're stacking energy shield on the chest. So for the helmet, we've got a freebooter cap that's got resists, an int roll, and then some mana. And for the sockets, we have an iron rune for increased evasion. We also have an Olamon, I believe it's an Olamon's Gaze it's called, for +1 to accuracy rating per 1 item evasion rating on equipped helmet. You can definitely get more evasion rating here if you wanted to spend the money. And for the boots, we have high evasion, movement speed, resists, and dex. Get 35% movement speed if you got the money for it. It's really important that you get high evasion on these two pieces because we're also running these immobilized gloves that don't have much evasion. It would be really nice to have like a 600 evasion pair of gloves, but we just don't have those currently. we're running these gloves because they're insane. You immobilize enemies at 50% buildup instead of 100%. Freeze is immobilize. Just absolutely insane how quickly you freeze things with these gloves. I played for a long time without them, and man, it is a night and day difference in my opinion with them on. I would not ever run this build without them again, and I just wouldn't. I mean, they're just nuts. And on top of that, enemies immobilized by you take 20% more damage. It's basically just a 20% more damage multiplier to your damage. Because again, pretty much we're only dealing damage, especially against pinnacle bosses, while they're frozen. So for the belt, the most important thing here is just to get a ton of resists. And then if you can get a good life roll on here too, that's great. It's really nice to also have 3 charms if you can get it. For the chest piece, you want a really high energy shield chest piece. I've got some life regen on here, which is nice because, again, from the degens from Berserk and Primal Fury, it's not necessary, but I really like having it. Got a resist here and then spirit. And then if you want to run my exact setup, you do need 1 unset ring, so you have enough skill slots. So this one, I'm getting all res int, and this is where I'm getting my physical attack damage as mana leached. And then we got some accuracy, which gives us a little bit of crit, and then some fire damage to attacks. This isn't like an insane ring by any means, but I needed some specific things on it. And then my other ring has added damage to cold, some evasion rating, which is great, really high lightning resist, and this is pretty much the only chaos res that I currently have with high rarity. Now, you can definitely drop the rarity here and get some more stats. I mean, these rings are really not giving me much damage. I mean, imagine the build with, 3 flat damage stats on each ring. It'd be pretty insane damage. For the amulet, this craft kind of failed a bit. I ended up not trying to like re-roll it or anything because I do plan to use this again on a different character that's going to be an armor stacker, which it should be really good then. I can just re-roll the increased energy shield from equipped body armor off of it for that. But we've got rarity, +3 to all melee skills, critical damage bonus, which you don't have to have all of that. Like, you can drop the critical damage bonus. It can get potentially expensive with some of that stuff. Increased global defenses, and then increased energy shield from equipped body armor. So really, all of our energy shield, for the most part, is coming from our body armor. And there are 3 different places you can get increased energy shield from equipped body armor. An Abyss mod on your amulet is 1. There's a passive on the tree that's another, and then you can get that same mod from the Heart of the Well unique jewel. So currently I only have 2 out of the 3. The main reason is because we need to have Tribal Fury allocated here, so I can't allocate the passive on my amulet, but there is another way to get it, which we'll talk about when we go over the passives. And again, Tribal Fury, strikes deal splash damage, really, really good with Lunar Assault. Unfortunately, being on the right side of the tree, we can't really path to it, so we have to anoint it. It is expensive. It's one of the more expensive anoints, unfortunately. But it is really good for map clear. I haven't ran without it in quite some time since I've got upgrades and got my damage up and things like that. So be interesting to try to run without it and just see what the Armor Explosion Herald of Ice looked like without this. But it's really good. With it being as expensive as it is, I wouldn't do it until you've got an amulet that you plan to use for a while. So we are running that Blood of the Warrior Life Flask. You can absolutely just swap that out for a normal flask as well. I do sometimes. Normally when I'm just doing regular mapping, I just run a regular life flask. We're running the Lavianga Spirits. So this basically gives you kind of like pseudo mana regen. You can't use it, but it just applies its effect constantly. It's giving me 61 mana every 2 seconds. And there's some interesting synergies on the tree. There's a lot on the right side that you get an effect while a flask is active. Well, if you're running this, you always have a flask active. So those passives are always active and you're getting the benefit from them, which is cool. And for charms, just, run whatever you feel like you need. Like I think I've got stun. I've got ignite on here, I think, from running Arbiter, but you can put freeze there. And then unaffected by slows is what I currently have. All right, so for the Ascendancy and the passive tree. So we are running Critical Strike. Chance to hit with attacks can exceed 100%. You gain additional crit chance equal to 25% of excess chance to hit with attacks. So we're getting a ton of crit out of this. Really nice to have. And again, this is one of the reasons why we're able to get to a 100% crit chance, guaranteed crits against bosses. Then we're running Predatory Instinct, reveal weaknesses against rare and unique enemies, 50% more damage against enemies with an open weakness. So you'll see that on the health bar of the bosses, that like different looking health is the open weakness. You deal more damage during that window. And then we've got Stalking Panther, like we've already talked about. This is really, really crazy Ascendancy node. Fantastic for defense. And then the last 2 points I change around depending on what I'm doing. So technically you could just run in for the kill all the time if you want to. You get 20% increased movement speed, 40% increased skill speed while an enemy with an open weakness is in your presence. I always run it on pinnacle bosses. It's really good there. But you don't really need it for mapping. So I typically drop it. You're not going to like really get the movement speed that often. The skill speed's nice, but you're also killing stuff so fast that it just doesn't like really feel that great to run, in my opinion, in maps, but you definitely can. You got a couple other options though. So you can run Mystic Harvest, so your life leech recovers based on your elemental damage as well as physical, which is really, really good. I mean, most of the time you're going to have ES, but this also helps you with the degen from Savage Fury and Berserk. Another interesting option that doesn't typically get ran, you actually run as Mary Brew. Life flasks also recover mana, and mana flasks also recover life. So your Lavianga's Spirit is actually going to give you basically like life regen while you have this active. And then also, if you're degenning and you don't have full life, then you can hit your life flask to refill your mana. It's kind of interesting. I'm not saying I would recommend it. I'd probably just always run Mystic Harvest over it, but it is an option. All right, so for the rest of the tree, starting with Amazon, we're going through the movement speed and evasion stuff, getting crit damage, evasion, movement speed attack damage. Then there's a bunch of deflection and evasion stuff down through here. There's a wheel here we're grabbing, and a wheel here we're grabbing, so we're deflecting more hits. Also getting some accuracy with Falcon Dive. They did nerf this patch. It used to be uncapped. It now caps at 20%, which is fine, not a big deal for us really. Got some more deflection here. And then here is actually one of those nodes that I was talking about, Crystal Elixir. You get 40% increased elemental damage with attack skills during any flask effect, so this is active all the time. And we're getting some more crit down here. We'll go over the jewels here in just a minute as well. Now right here, since we're already here, there is cooldown recovery and skill effect duration in this wheel if you need to get it for your Lunar Blessing. So here we're getting increased damage while affected by Herald of Ice, cold damage. And again, if you are dropping Herald of Ice for Eternal Rage when you're doing Pinnacle bosses, then obviously you want to spec out of this. So up here we're getting some evasion rating and dex. And then we've got all the crit here along with the daze nodes here. And we are running a Time Loss Sapphire that's going to be giving us maximum energy shield. It's going to increase the effect of the notables in the circle. We're actually getting some damage penetrates cold resistance. The main two things I wanted on this was the maximum energy shield and the increased effect of the notables. Cold Pin like isn't the worst, even though we are ignoring enemies' resistances when they're frozen. Cold Pin will still help you get to the freeze, if that makes sense, but I would prefer this be something else. I think probably Area of Effect would be pretty nice for mapping. And we've got more crit up here. We're getting a little bit of evasion and energy shield through these. And then we actually have some new Area of Effect nodes right here. So these give you Area of Effect And then this one reduces accuracy rating. 2 more area of effect nodes. This one reduces crit chance. So there are some downsides to these, but we're getting some new area of effect in this side of the tree, which is nice. Then we're moving up this way, getting the crit on weapon set 1. And then we're grabbing Thin Ice for more freeze buildup and damage against frozen enemies. And then Heavy Frost. More freeze buildup, hits ignore non-negative elemental resistances of frozen enemies. Alright, so then coming down here, we path and stop here and put in a controlled metamorphosis. You get one with a medium-large ring, you're able to hit a lot of really good stuff through here. You can hit both the crit damage int node and the dex crit chance node. You can get 15% increased attack speed while not on low mana, and 8% of damage taken from mana before life. A little bit of an extra defensive layer there. We've got Distracted Target, more crit chance against blinded enemies. And then I currently have Conservative Casting, which is giving us mana regen and mana cost efficiency. And there's also new area of effect nodes right here. So this actually hits another node that it didn't before. That's pretty good. It's got Daze Chance, area of effect for attacks, and increased attack area damage. And there's a couple other nodes here that I don't even have that actually aren't bad. Finesse gives you accuracy rating and then accuracy equal to your intelligence. And then Kite Runner's not bad either. Movement speed and increased projectile damage, which will affect the ice fragments from Shred. So it's not terrible. So we are running a Heart of the Well. So the main things I wanted on here were increased energy shield from equipped body armor, increased cooldown recovery rate, and increased skill effect duration. The increased critical damage bonus was just that. It was just a bonus. The other 3 were what I was really looking for on that. And that last gem I'm running currently, just a rare gem. It's got crit damage bonus, recover 2% of maximum mana on kill, which is actually a stat you can get on the Heart of the Well if you want to. And then that's about it, really. I mean, again, it does have some damage penetrates cold res, which is fine. So you do have, again, one more way to get increased energy shield from your chest. That's going to be this. 60% increased energy shield from equipped body armor. Now, again, since we are allocating Tribal Fury to our amulet, we're not able to get that at the moment. One way you could get it is with a Megalomaniac unique jewel. So those roll with random notables on the tree, and that is one of the ones that you can get from that. So technically you could replace this with a Megalomaniac with that to get a ton more energy shield. So the final thing that we're doing on the tree over here is with our weapon swap. The weapon swap works perfectly with the right side of the tree because there is a ton of increased shock and ailment magnitude over here. So you get a bunch right here. So this is going to be on weapon set 2. Technically, this is as well. So if it crits, you get increased magnitude of non-damaging ailments. That's why there's a little bit of variance in it. You got some up here as well. And then finally up here, more magnitude of shock. All right, I think that'll about wrap it up, guys. Again, one of the most well-rounded builds I've played in this game. And yeah, if you're looking for, something other than Druid to play some Wolf, I would highly recommend Amazon. Amazon is just a really, really well-rounded Ascendancy in general. And the right side of the tree really lends itself towards the Ice Wolf, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.